Welcome to Fort Worth Innovates, a show about innovation, research, entrepreneurship, and startups in Panther City. My name is Cameron Cushman, and I'm the host of this podcast that brings you the stories of the people that are putting our city on the map as a leader in innovation, with the help of the Fort Worth Tarrant County Innovation Partnership. My guest today is Paul Puopolo, who serves as the Chief Technology and Innovation Officer at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport. He leads DFW's innovation function to identify, assess, and drive the collaborative development of new solutions and business models to create new growth and competitive advantage. Prior to joining DFW Airport, he served as the VP of Innovation at MetLife, the VP of Business Innovation and Development at Highmark, and was a Director of Consumer Innovation at Humana. Paul also served as an active duty officer and as a pilot in the United States Navy and retired from the Navy after 22 years of service. Paul, welcome to the Fort Worth Innovates podcast.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me.
Okay, so I just read off your bio, but tell us a little bit about DFW Airport. Most people are familiar with it. I mean, it's one of the busiest airports in the world, but I always am amazed by just some of the stats around Dallas-Fort Worth, just how big it is and how big of an impact it has. And then I want to jump into the innovation piece.
Yeah, so DFW, right now we're the third busiest airport in the world. You probably heard the stats. We're about the size of Manhattan. We are actually a city when you think about it. With everything that we have at the airport between our facilities and our transportation and our security systems and our parking, we actually act like a city. So there's a lot that goes on here in a 27 square mile our radius. We're excited about what we do. We contribute a lot to the economic development of the region. So it's an exciting place to be. There's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. There's obviously a lot on the technology side, and we always have some fantastic construction projects going on if you've been to the airport lately.
Well, yes, and we'll get to those in a second. But you came highly recommended to us at DFW Airport about, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff that they're doing. They're doing so much innovation, and we have seen that the airport has been recognized as a leader in innovation. How do you personally define innovation in the context of an airport experience today?
Well, I think one of the simplest definitions of innovation is delivering something new and useful to an organization. And I think that goes across all companies or all organizations, not just airports. And I think that's the easiest way to define it. It's got to be new, obviously, and it's got to be useful. If you're just doing things that can't get implemented or that isn't a value, that could be considered more of an invention than an innovation. So for us, or at least the way I look at it, you have to be able to implement. And that could be different things, and how you do it could be different in every organization. You always have to innovate in context. So you can't really copy somebody else's model for your organization. So I think the art of innovation is figuring out how do you make it work for the organization that you're in. And that could be research and development in some organizations. It could be product development in others. It could be an innovation function like we have. It could be corporate ventures. But at the end of the day, I firmly believe that you need a group of people or an individual that is accountable for innovation, because that is how you can make sure that you adhere to some sort of standards or that you're driving the agenda and linking it to the corporate strategy. So that's the way I think about it. I've done it for a long time. Obviously now I'm working on other things such as data and analytics and technology as well as innovation, but that's worked for me in my past roles.
Very cool. I love that. And it's a great and simple definition that I think can apply anywhere, as you mentioned. So tell us about a few innovations that are happening right now at DFW that travelers might just not even realize exist, or that are improving their experience.
Well, there's a lot that's going on, let's just say behind the scenes. So let's say on the operational side of DFW when it comes to innovation. But I will preface that the entire organization seeks to innovate, and each division or each department is looking to innovate in its own way. But I would say, behind the scenes, you probably don't know all the processing technology that we have in place. We've worked really hard with our government partners to bring in the best technology in order to improve screening and fast processing for passengers. What you might see are the self-service bag drops. So how do we put that technology in to allow people to kind of control their own checkpoint process? One area that we're pretty excited about is one-stop security. That was an innovation that took about 5 years to get to where we are today. So when you think about long-term innovation, one-stop security is one of those projects, and that allows people, let's say, from the United Kingdom or the UK, travel to DFW, and instead of going through customs and border patrol and going to pick up their bag and then going through security, you're allowed to pass right into the terminal. And that took a lot of time to work through processes and the technology and working with Customs and Border Patrol and TSA. But essentially, it saves about 40 minutes for a person that's coming in from, let's say, the UK to Dallas and let's say moving on. And that's a huge savings on the traveler side. So we're pretty excited about that. We're testing autonomous vehicles. We're testing autonomous sweepers. We're testing autonomous lawnmowers. Those are all things that are going on behind the scenes that people probably don't realize, but it helps us be a lot more efficient in the way we run the airport. And that's a good thing when it comes to impacting the operations. Our parking team, I'll even throw out our parking yield management function. We do a lot on the back end around parking with technology in the garages and at the plazas. We actually run an AI model for the parking yield management team that has about 1,000 different pricing models to it so that we can give the best options to passengers before they even get to the airport. And of course, I think AI and machine learning is something that we're using on the efficiency side and behind the scenes. One of the things that we're incredibly proud of is two products that we just recently launched. One is for congestion. It's called Aware. A lot of people won't know that we're doing this, but we have 10 different real-time inputs from various sensors and inputs from around the airport that helps us predict the congestion that we might see on the roadway or on the curb. And that allows us to deploy people ahead of time so that we can maybe prevent that congestion from happening. And then we have a predictive model that's tied to it. And then we also do something very similar on the maintenance side. We call it a scheduling optimization tool. And you might not think maintenance is a big deal when it comes to the passenger experience, but we have a large organization, a lot of facilities and things break. So how can we be more predictive, and how can we dispatch people in a more effective and efficient way so we can fix things maybe before they break? And that will obviously have an impact on terminal operations and the passenger experience. So both those tools are digital tools using AI, capturing data from a lot of different sensors in order for us to be more efficient.
Yeah, you got a lot of facilities to manage there, and they, I'm sure, require tons of maintenance. So that's really cool to hear. So you mentioned AI, you mentioned a couple other technologies, automation, even automated lawnmowers. I didn't think we were going to get into that today. That's pretty cool. But how are you leveraging technologies like AI, automation, biometrics to improve efficiency and customer experience? And maybe can you give us a sense of what's next?
Yeah, so we've tried hard at DFW to balance technology with the human touch. Not everybody um, who travels is as digital savvy as other people are, right? So we have to balance that. Things that you'll see inside the terminal from a customer experience side, you might see new. We call them the flight information display. So there'll be new displays that has new content and the organization of that content to make it easier for people to find their gate and find out how long it'll take them to get to their gate. You'll also see new digital maps that our customer experience team has put in that allows you to kind of look at where you are and then find restaurants and how long it takes from where you are to get to those restaurants. So new digital maps for the people who need it. We are also launching a new AI chatbot to help you answer questions through your mobile phone, and of course, Blue Dot navigation and wayfinding for people who need it. Biometrics is a big deal for us. You've probably seen the biometrics on the exits when you leave for certain flights. So we're continuing to expand and advance in biometrics and how we use those. We've worked with our Custom and Border Patrol to bring in new technology when you come into customs so that we can streamline that, particularly for U.S. residents, so that you can maybe bypass the longer process. And we're also testing some autonomous vehicles. We've tested autonomous wheelchairs, but now we're testing some new autonomous vehicles inside the terminal to help people who might need it get from, let's say, the checkpoint to their gate. And these autonomous vehicles would allow you to book them and allow you to get to your gate, drop you off, and then come back and charge. So all of this seems like, well, it seems like it's just a bunch of technology, but it has to sit on obviously a good network. And there's AI behind the scenes working with all those tools.
Fascinating. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And every time I go through the airport, you feel bad for the guy who's broken his leg or the elderly person, and they're kind of at the whim of whoever's there to push them around and make sure they can get from point A to point B. So yeah, to have that autonomous capability, I think is a really fascinating way to move people. Um, DFW has built a reputation for collaborating with startups and partners and local businesses. Can you walk us through how your innovation ecosystem works with these outside partners, and why do you think that matters?
Well, you can't innovate on your own. I think innovation is a collaborative sport, and we don't believe that we know everything about what's going on out there, right? So the ecosystem is incredibly important, and we work really hard with some of our corporate partners, our local corporate partners. We work with various organizations uh, within the community, such as NCT COG, and of course industry partners and work groups, to try to find out what is going on out there from a technology standpoint and what can be applied to the airport. As you can imagine, we have a lot of commonalities with smart cities and smart city programs. So there's a lot of partners out there who are doing things that we need to work with and we need to collaborate with. As far as startups go, we know we're a difficult partner for startups, not because we don't want to be collaborative, but it's a tough environment. The airport's a tough environment, and so if you're a startup and you want to test something, it's difficult, but because of all the regulations that are in place for a startup to meet the requirements of our airport, which is why our dedicated innovation team is so important, right? We help work with those startups. We help position them the right way. We help de-risk some of the things that they're trying to do. And we work really closely with an organization called A4I, which is Airports for Innovation, which is an international group of airports. We are the only U.S. airport that's a participant of it. And they put out cohorts, and then we help market the cohort to allow U.S. startups to get involved, and they go through the process. And last year, we actually tested 3 solutions from 3 different startups that came out of that cohort. So we're pretty excited about the work we do with that organization. But it helps all the airports that are participating look at specific things that we're all interested in. So it's good for the startup as well.
That is fascinating. Well, I love hearing that because yes, it's hard if you're a startup to work with a big partner, and yet that's probably very critical to the future of your business to test the technology and make sure that it works. So I love that you guys are opening the doors for that kind of activity because it's not easy, particularly for big institutions to do. Well, the biggest news I would think that about DFW that I keep hearing all about is the new Terminal F, and I was there just a couple of days ago, and it's rising out of the ground. I mean, you can really see it; it is coming to fruition. Can you give us a virtual tour of what it's going to look like and what passengers can expect in the new Terminal F?
Yeah, I mean, our infrastructure and development team has done a great job. That is coming together really quickly, and every day you'll see something new being developed. So if you go by there today, you'll see it's already 2 stories. You'll see the beautiful glass that's already in place, and you'll also see the new Skylink station that's actually been put in place already. So doing amazing work there to try to meet our goals for next year to launch the first piece of that um, next year. But then obviously we have a longer term plan for the parking garage and the processing area. Um, but if I had to give you an idea, it will be state of the art. It's going to be one of those terminals when you walk in, it'll be open and bright. It'll be more 2 story than what you see in maybe our Terminal A and Terminal B. So that's a great thing. And I think you'll see some interesting art and Texas flair, so that people will resonate that they're in the North Texas region when they go in there. I think passengers will experience a lobby area that we will have. Uh, I don't want to say loaded with sensors, but sensors will be a big thing for us to help manage passenger flow. Checkpoint wait times, which we do today, we'll probably have e-gates in there that will allow people to self-process through security, and of course, we'll have the self-service bag drops as well for faster baggage screening. I think behind the scenes, we'll have lidar and camera technology that will monitor the flow of passengers through the terminal, so we can get a better idea of maybe where there are hotspots. We'll also use that for the curb to manage curbside traffic and parking garage traffic. And then more importantly, we will have technology working with the airlines on the ramp, meaning how do we use the camera technology to help them monitor safety and monitor their ramp operations so that we can do quicker and faster turnarounds. The potential there in the future is also to do autonomous passenger boarding bridges. Those are bridges that, the bridge that comes out to meet the aircraft. Um, right now they can operate remotely, but in the future they'll be operating autonomously. So we'll be interested to putting the basics in there for that. So in case airlines want to use that, we'll have that technology. And the thing that I get most excited about is when we actually build our new Terminal F garage, the rooftop of that garage, we have plans in place to help support eVTOL. And that is the vertical takeoff and landing aircraft that everybody's been talking about and that we're excited about. And we appreciate NCT COG working with us on that, and of course the FAA. And so we're right in the middle of trying to work with those groups to identify corridors so that these aircraft can support the region in a new mobility with a new mobility solution. And I think with our new parking garage, we are going to be able to have a location for them to come in and land, and then we can process people from that parking garage right into through to security. So that's an exciting component. The challenge with construction is that these things take 3 or 4 years to build. So the terminal can take a while. And so you have to think ahead. You have to think 2 or 3 years ahead on what you might need to be put in place. And particularly when it comes to technology, and that's a little bit difficult.
Yeah, and when you say eVTOL, you're talking about, and I'm not sure the correct industry term here, but you're talking about flying cars, you're talking about flying
Yes.
taxis. That is
Yes.
the ability to take one from, say, downtown Fort Worth off the rooftop or a parking lot directly to DFW, then to board your flight is a very real possibility in the near future.
Correct, and we think it'll be here in our market in 2028. So if it's in our market around 2028, and we're going to complete, let's say, the parking garage in late 2028, early 2029, or somewhere in that time frame, we want to make sure we have the designs in place and work with the FAA and these OEMs so that we can handle it when the market takes off.
Well, it sounds like we need to build some departure points here in Fort Worth. So maybe maybe
Right.
we
We
need
need
some
multiple
in
nodes.
downtown. Yeah, that's right. You got to have multiple nodes to have a network. That's exactly right. Okay, so that's a great transition to my next question. That's obviously a huge advance in aviation. But is there anything else that's on the horizon that you see in aviation itself or from your carriers, most notably probably American Airlines, that will have an impact on how DFW serves its passengers?
We have a great relationship with our airlines, and particularly American Airlines, because they're our biggest partner here at DFW Airport. Like I said before, we've executed smart RAM technology with them. We did a pilot program. We work very closely with them on how do we automate the ramp area for them so that we can have faster turnaround times and, of course, safety. We did the pilot with one-stop security with them, and that's obviously great. And we see that expanding. We see that expanding to other airlines and other locations. And we're also testing an autonomous vehicle baggage tug with Alaska Airlines. So how do we start bringing this autonomy on the ramp area to move things faster, which is big for us and big for the passenger experience. I think e-gates are something that we're working very closely with them. How do we help facilitate the boarding process with our airlines? That's going to be something very important. And we share data on a regular basis with the airlines because if you think about it, the airline really has the connection to the traveler. And then we are there to support that experience. And so we have to really work closely with our airline partners to understand when our when our passengers coming, where our passengers going, how are they flowing through the terminal so that we can actually create a great experience for them when they're here.
Yeah, I love that. Wow, lots of cool things you guys are testing. That's really incredible. So, Paul, airports aren't typically known for being experimental environments. How do you test new ideas at scale while maintaining safety and reliability? You've already told us about some of the work that you do with some startups, but how do you test other ideas?
You know, there's not a lot of risk at airports, and that's probably a good thing, right? Nobody likes risk at an airport. But the challenge with innovation is always that you have to take some risk. And I think where we help, and the reason why I'm such an advocate of dedicated innovation groups within organizations is because you know your process and you know your environment. And it is our 7-step process that allows us to de risk ideas for the business and working with whatever solution provider or whatever innovator we have. And I think that's incredibly valuable. We get to control how we test that, and then we can work with our internal stakeholders, such as operations or the security team, in order to position things the right way and test things so that it won't disrupt the operation, and we won't violate any regulations. And I think that's where it can take a little bit extra time, but that is the challenge when you're in a highly regulated environment. But You can't just outsource that to somebody, which is why I think our dedicated team does such a great job working with our operations team and our CX team and our security team to test these technologies.
Yeah, that makes sense. Paul, there's a lot of talk about creating a seamless, almost invisible travel experience. You've talked about some of the technologies you're already implementing, but what does a truly frictionless, seamless airport look like in the next 5 to 10 years?
That's a great question. We always shudder a little bit when we hear seamless. So I like the term because I don't know if anything will ever be seamless, but we do like the term frictionless because I think at the end of the day, you always have to start with the customer needs, or in this case, the traveler needs. When we look at travel, there'll always be timeless needs for the traveler. And that means needs that we have today, that we'll need tomorrow, and that we'll need in the future. And those needs are such as you're always going to have to go through security. You're always probably going to need food and beverage. And you'll always probably need a restroom, and you'll always need connectivity, right? So when we look at the unmet timeless needs for travelers, that's how we focus our time and attention. And then you need to look at technology and then figure out, well, how does that technology solve some of those timeless needs? And in our case, it would be, how do we use technology to reduce the wait time in the checkpoint? How do we use technology to speed up baggage claim? How do we use technology to speed up waiting for transportation? So in a way, we try to give control back to the traveler. We try to give them much more information that they might be looking for, and how do we help them have more knowledge of what's going on at the airport? If we can answer those questions, we believe and solve some of those pain points, we believe that we can create that frictionless environment. And that can be everything from a touchless ID process, working with the airlines to help the boarding process, new wayfinding tools, anything that we can do to kind of streamline whether you're a connector or whether you're originating at DFW Airport.
Very good, and yeah, that's really exciting and really interesting because I do think we're headed there, but people don't think about applying that to your air travel, and I think that's something that will be really interesting to keep an eye on. So, Paul, beyond passenger experience, how is innovation reshaping the business model of an airport like DFW? Especially when you think about the retail, maybe data, the big data. You guys take in lots of data, or new potential revenue streams.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I look at the portfolio innovation and the balance of the portfolio against your corporate strategy. So when we think about business models, that can mean different things to different organizations. And when I look at that, does that mean you want to spend more of your time on the core business and the evolutionary side of innovation, or do you want to spend more time on the differentiating side in the market? Or, of course, the one that we always love to talk about and everybody always wants to talk about is the revolutionary side of innovation, where you don't know what the solution is and you don't know where the market's going. So, how much do you want to spend time there? And I think that portfolio approach helps us focus on where can we impact the business. Some of that will be cost efficiencies, some of that will be revenue, and some of that will be just more like process improvements. And you also then have to look at your airport. Some airports like DFW, we're a major connecting hub. That is different, let's say, than a destination airport like a Las Vegas. So all that comes into, how does innovation support the business, and how does that support the business model of that airport? And I'll give you an example. The work that we do with parking and our dynamic pricing and using AI, that is really helping the core business get better. And as we use more AI tools, we get better at pricing and we can turn that over to make that a better customer experience. But that would be more of a process improvement type or revolutionary type of innovation. On the other side, technologies such as 5G and the use of the 5G and the private network, we never had access to manage our own network for connectivity. Technology now enables us to do that. So now we can differentiate ourselves in the market on the network and connectivity side. And then lastly, as I said before about eVTOL, advanced air mobility, that's an entirely new market and an entirely new technology. And we're not even sure what the business model of that is going to be. But we're working on that and we're coming up with our plans, and we're trying to put some no risk or I guess no fault moves in place so that we can be prepared for that market. So that's on the revolutionary side. So I think technology and your portfolio, looking at technology and looking at your portfolio, helps you figure out where you can add to the business.
Very cool. Yeah, I love hearing about all that and how you guys are thinking about that. As you know better than anybody, DFW Airport in the middle of the Metroplex, 8 million plus people live in the DFW area. It sits at the center of one of the fastest growing regions in the country. How do you see the airport contributing to the broader innovation ecosystem in North Texas beyond just the travelers and when you show up at the airport?
Yeah, I think we have we try to work really closely with our communities. We believe that yes, we're one of the economic drivers for this region, and we like to collaborate a lot with both regional chambers, with the both Visit Dallas and Visit Fort Worth. We work very closely with NCT Cog, and I think even recently we've had some conversations with the Texas A&M and Fort Worth Innovation Group to get better connected with that team. Because, like I said before, we can do things here at the airport and we can do things just in our own environment. But when it comes to mobility and transportation, we believe that's a regional impact. And whatever we do, we want to make sure that we can connect and have a great experience that goes from the airport to the region and also from the region to the airport. And so, I believe that needs to happen. We all need to think about the traveler's journey from one location to the next and how to make it the most efficient and effective as possible. So we're excited about the groups that we're connected with locally, and I hope people are excited about working with us as well.
That's great. Paul, the last question we always ask on this show, I want to know, what is your favorite innovation in Fort Worth?
Putting me on the spot.
Yeah.
You know, well, there's a lot of good things that are happening, but I have to go on the aviation side of things. I'm sorry, but that's just the way I have to go. So I think that the work that Alliance is doing with that mobile innovation zone, the work that they're doing with drones, working closely with all of us on figuring out corridors so that they can do drone delivery, but that those corridors then can be turned into the eVTOL delivery corridors. So a lot of the work that they're doing out there on the mobility side and on the air side, I think is pretty exciting. So I have to side on the aviation side of innovation if you're putting me on the spot.
Well, we'd expect nothing less. So I think that's a great answer. And I think you're right. There is going to be some really interesting stuff on the horizon because Fort Worth and the Metroplex is such a hub for aviation and aerospace and has been for a long, long time, going all the way back to defense at Lockheed Martin and Bell. And we had the former CEO of Elbit on the podcast recently. And there just is so much interesting innovation in that world that I think it makes complete sense that that would be your top innovation in Fort Worth.
I think we're going to see a lot in advanced air mobility and urban air mobility over the next 5 years, and I think North Texas, Fort Worth, ourselves in Dallas, I think we're in a great spot to be leaders in that space.
Absolutely. Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining me today on Fort Worth Innovates. If you like hearing stories like this about innovation, research, entrepreneurship, and startups in our city, please subscribe, follow, share, and be sure to tell a friend. The more you engage, the more episodes just like this we can bring to you. Fort Worth Innovates is produced by Kendall Rogers. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this podcast, the Fort Worth Tarrant County Innovation Partnership, who are building an innovation district where technology and research combine to build the future right here, right now.